Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Westport Library's first business program of 2021. Thank you all for coming. I'm Ellen Janpol, Business Librarian at the Westport Library. The Longevity Economy series consists of programs in three areas. The first one today is on multiple careers and multiple years, and is followed by two other programs in the series: Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, Optimize Your Financial Health for the Longevity Economy, on Thursday, January 21st at 12:30 p.m. with Caroline Wetzel, and The Future of Healthcare, Integrative Medicine for the Whole Person, on Wednesday, January 27th at 12:30 p.m. with Dr. Katie Takayasu. Business programs at the library consist of business events as well as career services, including resume reviews, LinkedIn profiles, and career counseling. All of this done, of course, remotely right now. We also have a job search work team, which allows for an accountability and networking group for the job search. For more information on any of these programs or services, please contact me at ejanpol@westportlibrary.org. And for future events of any type at the Westport Library, please check www.westportlibrary.org. Just for some ground rules today, we are recording this program, so it will be available on our YouTube video anytime within the next 2 or 3 days. We also have some ground rules for the chat. If you have a question you would like to ask, please post it in the chat and we will answer it when appropriate. So I'd like to give you some introductory remarks. According to Dr. Joseph Coughlin, director of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Age Lab and author of The Longevity Economy, Unlocking the World's Fastest Growing, Most Misunderstood Market, the population isn't just aging. People are living longer and increasing their health span for prolonged health too. That means that as the population of elders increases, so grows a group of consumers, workers, and innovators. In other words, they're not simply a group that needs services from the so-called silver economy, which is aimed solely at older and aging people. Rather, the aging population can continue to be full service participants in the economy at large. Youth may be poised to inherit the future, but now aging populations are defining it, especially in the world of work. As elders live longer and healthier lives, they will continue to actively participate in the global economy, and possibilities open to potentially turn longevity into an asset for society. A key part of longevity and increased health span is the freedom to work. When workers are living healthier, longer lives, an aging workforce can be an opportunity to reap what consultancy Deloitte calls the longevity dividend, being able to boost economic productivity from elder employees. The current pandemic has transformed how and where people work, but keep in mind that the world of work has been changing for literally hundreds of years. We have seen jobs downsized or eliminated altogether, which has resulted in massive unemployment. And underemployment has risen, and there have been periods between employment that has lengthened. The use of technology to bridge the gap between in-person and virtual interaction has skyrocketed in every business. Our new world of work is characterized by the gig economy, frequent career changes, the rise of Me Inc., and less dependence on corporations. But there are simultaneously tremendous opportunities for people who are willing to embrace new business models and learn, unlearn, and relearn. Two key aspects that we are going to talk about today focus on the idea of retirement as a concept rather than a reality, and the viability of work for the older worker. More Americans 65 and older are working than at any time since the turn of the century. There are many reasons. Of course, income is a strong motivator, but there's the need for social connection and a chance to use their lifetime of knowledge and experience. They may be working part or full-time, volunteering, and mentoring. And just to give you a sense of where my career has been and how I fit into this equation, I've got a master's in library science and a master's in business administration. I felt back in my 20s that I was well prepared for a long career with an established company, followed by a pension and a relaxing retirement. By the time I was in my early 40s, this had changed completely. The company was gone along with all my other concepts. In looking back at my work life, I've had about 10 careers, from documentalist to library manager, program manager, communications manager, management consultant, technical analyst, researcher, marketing and events director, business librarian, and also to that old standby, when all else fails, receptionist. As my father told me when I was 10, you can always find a job if you can type. But what I learned from this very nonlinear career path was that I had to pivot quickly. And the skills that helped me were adaptability and flexibility, the ability to react quickly to changing environments, communication skills, both verbal and nonverbal, collaboration and teamwork, pitching in to help at all times, problem solving and decision making, being reliable and dependable, to take initiative, and a willingness to learn, and above all, a love of lifelong learning. Not all these skills are taught in school, and my emotional intelligence skills, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage my own and others' emotions and use them positively to achieve desired outcomes, are often viewed higher than my intellectual skills. Now that you've learned a little bit about me, I'd like to turn this over to Chris. As we all know, Chris Bishop is a workplace futurist. He has had a fascination with how careers have been transformed and will be transformed in the coming years. Based on the 8 varied careers he had in his last 45 years, Chris is very adept at providing insight in how the world of work is being disrupted. Why you will be working is as interesting as what you will be doing. Some of Chris's background includes being a TEDx speaker, LinkedIn learning instructor, a former IBMer, and now a future workplace consultant. He has led seminars at multiple academic institutions, including Baruch College, Columbia, the Stern School at NYU, Texas A&M, Union College, among others. One of his current activities is as an executive in residence at Baruch College, and where he helps Baruch students prepare for the world after college by helping them develop communication, networking, and interviewing skills, as well as helping them investigate the many career paths available to them. Hi, Chris. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Ellen. I'm delighted to be here. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, although I think probably most of the people are local, so it's good afternoon. Hope you had a good lunch. I want to share some slides with you, give you some perspective on sort of where we are with work, where it's been, and how it relates to the longevity economy, right? So let me share my screen. We'll pull up this set of charts. Okay, here we go. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So the longevity economy, new workplace model, multiple careers. So actually this is an animated GIF. Let me see if I can get it to speak. Here we go. So this is some imaginary city of the future. Cool GIF I found online. Let's go to the establishing shot. So as Ellen had mentioned, I describe myself as a nonlinear multimodal careerist. I won't belabor this. You can please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can see more detail about this. But I've had 8 careers so far, from touring rock musician. This is me in the upper left-hand corner in the 70s in a dressing room getting ready to open for the Eagles, I think, in Lexington, Kentucky. Me and my leather pants, I moved to New York in the late 70s, became a session musician, played with people like Robert Palmer and Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley. Ended up in the jingle business, writing music for television. I sang and played bass on the first Kit Kat jingle. Give me a break, ow, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. That turned out to be a lucrative hour and a half. I then went to work at IBM for 15 years. First as a web producer. This is me when I was working at the IBM Foundation at corporate headquarters, when IBM Watson crushed the reigning grand champions in like 2011, I think. So that was pretty fun. We ran a symposium on how this level of AI might be applied to address the civic and social agenda. That was pretty interesting. This is a screenshot from my TEDx talk, which is online. You can find it. Lower left is me at Caltech. I ran a series of workshops on the future of fintech for State Street Global Advisors about a year and a half ago as part of their executive ed program. This is me chatting with one of their robots. It was pretty cool. So it's been interesting so far. As Ellen said, now I run workshops called How to Succeed at Jobs That Don't Exist Yet, virtually, of course, but at various universities and other academic settings. So let's shift gears, though, and talk about the history of work. So the world of work at a meta level, right, has been constantly reinvented from the days when we were hunter-gatherers, right, to today's settings where we're using robots to do things that are dirty, dangerous, or unpleasant, right? So this is, again, a process for perspective. It's been going on for thousands of years, right? This is a multiple choice question that I do with students, but we'll kind of go through it quickly. This is a quote, and I always ask students to tell me who said it, when it was said, and what it was about, right? So the quote is, "I refuse to issue a patent for fear it will put my poor subjects out of work." I'll give you a hint. "I refuse to issue a patent for fear it will put my poor subjects out of work." So the person who said it was Queen Elizabeth I, and she said it about automated knitting machines, right? And she said it in 1589. So apprehension about technology disrupting existing work models is a conversation that's been going on for a long time, 400 plus years at least, right? Let's talk about jobs that don't exist anymore. So the Pony Express was an innovative technology that emerged in about 1862. They were in business for about 18 months, right? They broke a barrier by being able to deliver messages, data, and packages, if you will, from New York to the left coast in like 10 days. Previously, it would take 30 days, either by stagecoach or by boat going around the tip of South America. Now, the thing they didn't realize is that between the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, right, when they drove the Golden Spike at Promontory Point, Utah, connecting the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific Railroad, in addition to another technology, which was the Victorian Internet, right, the creation of the telegraph and putting poles alongside the railroad track, this basically put them out of business. So within 18 months, this business model was no longer viable, and the four bankers in St. Joe, Missouri, who put this together, sold their assets to Wells Fargo. So my advice, don't go to work for Pony Express. Keep your spidey sense and your antenna open for company that may be disrupted by technology that's emerging. Another example is switchboard operators. So my grandmother actually did this in the early part of the 20th century, right? When phones emerged in the late 19th century, they needed people, and in this case particularly women took these jobs that connected people by plugging switches into slots in a switchboard, right? This lasted for about 50 or 75 years, and then it went away. It's now been replaced by sort of AI and software, if you will, right? Again, a viable business model, a job, a career that existed for a while, but was displaced by an emergent technology.
Hey, Chris, excuse me for interrupting for one second. The screen seems to be on your PowerPoint, just on the PowerPoint slide.
Okay.
We're not seeing the full slideshow. I just wanted to get in there as
okay.
before.
Yeah. So is it?
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
so
it's not in slideshow mode.
Yeah. So we're seeing.
That's too bad, because these are good slides.
That's exactly why I wanted to make sure.
Okay, so let's see if this one works. How about that?
There we go.
Is that all the slides?
Yes, now we can see it. So you might want to just back up a couple. We saw the bio slide. Yeah, sorry about that, Chris. I just wanted to make sure we got your full presentation.
So again, Pony Express, this was kind of a funny poster, right? This was their job rec: young, skinny, wiry fellows, orphans preferred, willing to risk death daily. Again, disruptive technology that was disrupted by another disruptive technology. And back to the, this model around sort of having to plug into a slot to be able to connect people on the phone, a model that went away. It was viable for a while. So let's go to 2021. And in fact, many of the top jobs today didn't exist as recently as 5 years ago. Some didn't exist as recently as a couple of years ago. But here's, here are 5 that I like to cite. So quantum software developer. I'm quite involved in the quantum space these days. I've been working as the master of ceremonies for a couple of online quantum events for a production company called Inside Quantum Technology. This is a picture of a quantum computer on the upper right. So companies emerging to write software and build dilution refrigerators and wiring harnesses and optical benches for development of this new technology. 3D printer operators. So here's a guy at GE, they're printing jet engine parts, right? Sustainable energy strategies. This is like just a screen grab of a solar farm, right? And we're seeing these kinds of installations along with attendant batteries, emerging more and more. Autonomous vehicles. Waymo is the offshoot from Google, from their autonomous division at Google X, right? And this is a model that's emerging. General Motors has an organization called Cruise, where they're developing electric autonomous vehicles. And then really interesting is sort of blockchain strategy. So this is typically associated with crypto assets, right? Crypto coins and Bitcoin. But actually, here's an example of IBM and Maersk, who've been partnering to develop blockchain for things like provenance and origination mapping. So instead of like clipboards and checklists and Post-its, they're using the blockchain to keep track of where stuff came from and where it is and where it's going. So in terms of the longevity economy, these are emerging opportunities for any and all of you looking to do something in the future, right? Over the course of your work life. Let me go to this next slide. So what do emerging careers have in common? I would contend that they have these three characteristics. So they connect unlikely disciplines, disciplines that haven't historically been connected. They're driven by tech for sure, right? Every company today is a technology company, whether they like it or not. And it requires the use of old and new skills. So you're going to, as a longevity economy worker, you're going to need to stay abreast of the latest tech, be prepared to work at the intersection of these unlikely disciplines, and take skills you have and transfer them, and then as well as acquire new skills, and that'll allow you to be successful in a new career, right? So let me share some fun examples with you of convergences that are happening today. So mechanical engineering and pharmacology. Worth noting that the three chemists who won the Nobel Prize about 3 years ago won it for the development of nanomachines, right? 10 to the minus 9. Worth mentioning, there's a brand new $400 million building on the MIT campus focused just on nanotechnology around material science and drug development. So say you're interested in these two fields, you might work as a nanopharmacist. They're developing robotic devices, things like neural dust and pills that have spikes in them that contain pharmacology that can be delivered at the molecular or even atomic scale, right to the wound or to the tumor, if you will. This is going on today and is only going to be a growing area. So you're into architecture and mobility, so new ways to move people around as well as have them work. So this is kind of a fantastic image of, what we might use to move people around urban settings. So these kinds of vehicles might be, rolling offices. They could be co-working spaces. They could have meeting spaces, as well as just sort of transporting people from one part of a urban setting to another. There might be living spaces as well, right? The pandemic has driven us to rethink how people work and where they work. So this kind of solution might be viable in the future. Say you're interested in robotics and law. So again, an intersection that didn't really exist until recently, but we have examples like who's responsible if this robot drops a 10-pound box on your foot? Or if this robot breaks grandmother's Waterford crystal when loading the dishwasher? Or this robot steps on your cat when it's going up the stairs to resupply your bathroom. The idea is, where does the proverbial buck stop, right? Is it the robot manufacturer? Is it the software engineer? Is it the person who sold you the robot, the company that leases the robot? These are all open questions that are being discussed as we sit here, right? This is one of my favorites, actually. So maybe you're into hospitality and astrophysics or even aeronautics. So there's a company called Orion Span that's proposing to put together a flying hotel, if you will, modeled after the International Space Station that will accommodate 6 guests and 2 crew. They're proposing to launch the first version in 2022, right, next year. So the question it begs is a new skill required. This is obviously a new career, but how do you mix and serve a martini in microgravity? That's a challenge. That's a new skill. That's a new career. So anyway, that's just to get, hopefully that'll give our viewers a sense of some ideas about, what kind of careers might be emerging in the future and how you might participate in a longevity economy at jobs that don't exist yet. So Ellen, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I think Chris has done a good job of identifying many careers that will be here in the future. Now, what are the qualities that you will need to really help yourself as you acquire these new careers? And the qualities needed in this new environment are going to include getting along with and working well with other people. And these include communication skills, verbal, nonverbal, listening, emotional intelligence, team working, negotiation, persuasion, influencing skills, conflict resolution and mediation, problem solving and decision making. We're also going to see that people will want workers who are reliable and dependable. They want them to be organized, trustworthy, conscientious, to take initiative, and to have integrity. And finally, there is the idea of also looking at your human capital in ways that you will use it. The ability and the willingness to learn is key. As Bill Gates has stated, in the long run, your human capital is your main base of competition. I think Chris now has something that is very interesting that he would like to share with you, and this is the Future Career Toolkit.
Great, thanks, Helen. So let me see if I can share the right screen here.
Okay.
There we go. Screen share. Slideshow. Okay, here we go. All right. So what I wanted to talk to you about is what I call my Future Career Toolkit. So let's see if we can get this to move. There we go. Can you see that? Is that displaying properly?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. So based on my multiple careers, I got an invitation to give a keynote address at my alma mater, which is Bennington College. By the way, I have a degree in German literature from Bennington. I was the first class of men to go there. I actually minored in music as well, which is sort of how I segued into the music career. But anyway, they asked me to give a keynote to kick off a series of senior week activities. And I began to reflect, this is probably almost 10 years ago, on where my multiple careers played based on my Bennington education, and looking at the way today's learners were going to be working. And it became clear that I was, with all lack of modesty, somewhat the poster child, right, for the way today's learners are going to work. So the research says 3 interesting data points. 85% of the jobs that today's learners are going to do in the next 10 years haven't been invented yet. They're going to use technology that doesn't exist today, that makes things like this look antiquated. You mean you had to carry something around in your pocket to like talk to each other and take pictures? And they're going to use it to solve problems we don't yet know are problems. So in thinking about those criteria, I put together this Future Career Toolkit. I worked with a colleague, Brian Mattimore. Some of you may know him. He's an ideation guru, lives in Stanford, local guy. And we put together these 3 tools to help people figure out what they're good at, their voice, defining their own brand or value prop, personal product development, if you will. Antenna exercise, which allows you to map the features you identify using these triggers in the voice exercise to what's happening in the world. And then mesh, which is sort of a 3D data visualization exercise, building a meta network that you take through your work-life career. So let me share this with you. Let me give you a sense of how this works. So the first exercise is around voice. And the idea is to figure out what qualities make you stand out. You know, what skills and experience make up your personal brand. So keep in mind that your voice is going to change and evolve over your work life, as mine has, right? From, again, touring rock musician to IBM exec, to, freelance writer and speaker and consultant. So the exercise, the triggers we use, we ask people to pick a favorite movie, book, TV show, or game, can be current or from your childhood. And what do you like about it? So I want you to write down 2 or 3 aspects that you relate to. And you can do this along, play along at home, if you will. I'll show you what this grid looks like, give you my examples. But if you like, do this exercise with me as we're in the middle of this webinar, right? So here's my table, if you will. So my favorite movie is Blade Runner 2049, currently. I love that movie. I saw it 3 times, like in IMAX, 3D, and in a regular theater. But the thing that captivates me about it is future culture and technology, topics I'm fascinated by. A book that I liked recently is by Ruchir Sharma called Rise and Fall of Nations. Although there's another more recent book called More by Philip Coggan, who's an economist writer. It's called The History of Economics from the Iron Age to the Information Age. But the idea is I'm interested in economics and global business because that's ultimately what drives careers and jobs and skills, right? So again, this is the model for the voice exercise. Encourage you to build a little grid here and call out your favorite trigger and what the characteristics are, right? So the second exercise is around antenna. So the good news is there are lots of sources of information. The bad news is there are lots of sources of information. So the challenge in this day and age, right, is to parse and rationalize and identify so that you're focused on getting the right information. And the idea is to look for conversations that are going on. So this exercise, I ask you to research 1 to 2 sources for topics from the voice exercise, right? Where are these conversations going on around the topics that you teased out as a result of the triggers in the voice exercise? It can be a range, right? It can be anything from elite newspapers to YouTube channels to TED Talks to maybe you work at a company, there's content in your learning management system. The idea also is to assign a frequency. So make this a routine, if you will. So let me give you, again, a sense of how I fill in this grid. So for future culture, I go to a website called Futurism. They have a newsletter. They have a website. I check them daily. The Futures Agency is an organization run by a gentleman in Zurich named Gerd Leonhardt. He runs webinars every couple of months. I check his content. Again, his stuff is recorded, so you can review it, time shifted, if you will. For tech, I love the MIT Technology Review. They publish actually a quarterly magazine, but they also do newsletters that are focused on a range of topics from AI to space to crypto assets to general tech-related economic conversations. BBC Click is one of my favorite TV shows. They're on weekly, and again, they cover technologies that are sort of on the fringe of evolving business models. I record them and review them and study them. In terms of global business, one of my favorite shows is Bloomberg Studio 1.0, where the hostess, Emily Chang, interviews executives mostly focused on Silicon Valley companies, some startups, some established companies. I describe it as sort of the Entertainment Tonight of Silicon Valley. They get all excited about what is Tim Costello going to do now that he's left Twitter? Oh my goodness, what's in store for him? But it's a very enlightening and interesting show. And then Marketplace, which is the podcast that they do daily, again, talking about sort of global business trending. So again, fill out your antenna grid. Think about what sources, where are the conversations going on based on, what triggers you identified in the voice exercise, right? Make sense? And then the third tool is what I call mesh. So this is a sort of 3D data visualization that LinkedIn used to offer. They called it an in-map. And what they would do is they would render your network in 3D to give you a sense of, how you were connected to various people in your network. So for example, for me, the blue might be IBM, right? The green might be musicians that I worked with back in the day. The orange might be futurists that I've connected with, right? The purple might be Bennington alum that I'm still connected with. And then at the top is sort of random people that I may know through other people or that I've sort of encountered at events or online sessions or whatever. So the idea is you have a mesh, a network, and the idea is you want to identify who you know and who you don't know and then expand it, right? So when I do these exercises, workshops at universities and in other settings, I task people with picking 3 people to connect with based on your shared interest and find one group to join based on your topic of interest. And then I ask people to come back and describe who you found and who you might connect with. Again, this is my version. So for future culture, there are lots of people, again, put in some Boolean parameters in LinkedIn. LinkedIn obviously is the lingua franca, right? It's the coin of the realm. It's the tool that everyone uses. I'm a big fan. It allows you to represent your voice, put up your work products, pointers to videos, of you talking or presentations you put together on SlideShare. Again, a fantastic tool. Garrett Leonhardt is the CEO of this Futures Agency. I connected with him and I follow his work and I'm on his proverbial radar. In terms of tech, again, I'm interested in the quantum space. So Krista Savore is the GM of Quantum at Microsoft. She and I have now connected. I've invited her to speak at our next Inside Quantum Technology event. Asked her to either join us or send a lieutenant. In terms of global business, Tom Malone, who wrote a seminal book called The Future of Work, by the way, if you're not aware of it. It's several years old now, but it's really insightful. He talks about sort of trending, among other things, the way corporations are going to devolve over the next decade into a set of core resources that manage key operational processes, and the rest of it's going to all be managed across a network, right? Much the way movies are made, if you will. So he's a professor at MIT Sloan. He's an author, again, someone in my network now. So the idea is it's a numbers game, right? The future career thing, the longevity economy discussion. It's not what you know, but who you know, right? Aphorism oft described as showbiz, but now true in every business. So the idea is connect with people using these drivers from voice and antenna. I also want to mention I'm a big fan of CRM, right? Customer relationship management tools, typically used by salespeople, right? Here's some examples. Obviously, Salesforce is the 800-pound gorilla, but there are lots of other tools to keep track of who you spoke to and what they said and what the follow-up is and what files you might have shared with them. The one I use is called Less Annoying CRM. It's a startup based in St. Louis, fantastic, cloud-based. There's a mobile version. ACT is a big, fat client. They have a cloud version, but it's not nearly as nimble, I don't think, as Less Annoying. Copper is a tool that connects to Gmail and integrates with your Gmail and your Google Calendar. Very cool. But again, I encourage people to pick some kind of tool to keep track of, your burgeoning network, right? Make sense? Obviously LinkedIn. So just putting it all together in terms of these tools, voice, continually reflect on what makes you unique. It's going to evolve as you go through your own nonlinear multimodal career path. Your 8 to 10 jobs by the time you're 38. That's a stat from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And tend to be diligent about monitoring information sources and finding new ones. So if you find, for example, that the conversations are boring or dull or not forward thinking, or somebody drops off a blog and goes somewhere else, find a news source, right? Be constantly monitoring where these conversations are going on around topics of interest to you and where your skills and proclivities lie. And then the mesh exercise, I always admonish students and all of you as well watching this to add 5 people a week to your profile. Make it a job, right? So you can reach for them when you're ready to move to your next job. Use, Boolean parameters around whatever your voice criteria might be. But if you get to Friday at 5 o'clock and you haven't added 5 people, stop what you're doing and put some search criteria into LinkedIn and reach for your next 5 contacts. Tell them you're interested in what they're doing, discuss what they're interested in. Say you want to have an informational interview to introduce yourself and, again, get on their proverbial radar. And that's how you're going to find your next job and the one after that and the one after that. So that's the Future Career Toolkit. Ellen, here's some contact information for me. I don't know if it's too soon, but I'll share it here anyway. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Bishop. Certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. This is my email, Chris at Improvising Careers. And I have a website, improvisingcareers.com, where you can kind of keep track of what I'm doing and where I'm speaking and topics I'm following. So, Ellen, I'll stop sharing and turn it back to you. Maybe we can answer some questions, have some.
Yes, we do have some interesting questions. The first is, what advice do you have for people who want to continue to work as they age?
Well, first of all, that's a good thing. Keep your brain, keep those synapses firing. My general advice, right, at a meta level, and it served me well with all lack of modesty, is chase the maelstrom, find the chaos, go for the mayhem, right? So no matter what your age, go where they, the royal they being existing business models, don't know what it is yet. And you'll be able to contribute. It'll be a creative opportunity. You'll obviously be remunerated. But find something that's new and emerging, something that's on the fringe, right? And don't be intimidated by skills you may or may not have. Just figure out what you need to know and where you can acquire those skills and go get them, and then, step into a new role. Does that make sense? I mean, I've done it many times. I mean, when I moved to New York and tried to work as a bass player, I needed to learn how to play bebop tunes, how to sight read better, how to follow a lead sheet, how to improvise over jazz chords kind of thing. And I got my butt kicked a couple of times, more than a couple of times. But I realized that I had certain skills. I knew how to play the bass a certain way. But if I was going to be like a session guy in New York City, run with the big dogs in the belly of the beast, these were skills I needed to acquire. So, for example, if you want to get into quantum now, you don't have to be a particle physicist. They need people who know how to run marketing campaigns, how to do sales, how to do operations, how to provide investment strategy. They need educators. So there are people transferring skills from existing roles into, for example, quantum, other burgeoning areas, crypto assets, robotics, artificial intelligence, biotechnology. So, look for where it's new. Go to where the new stuff is being done, right?
Okay, another question is, what careers do you think we will lose? And how can we plan for a future to work and transfer our career skills into this new future?
So again, do a sort of self-assessment around what skills you have and what skills you might need. And again, it's an ongoing model, right? It's the lifelong learning model, right? Never stops. So again, you can use my voice exercise to get a sense of, what are you interested in? What might you want to work on? And what do you know how to do? And what do you not know how to do? Again, specifically thinking about situations for me, like at IBM, when you look at a job rec, for example, right, very often it's one of two things. It's a hiring manager describing what the person did in the role before you, or it's what they call in HR a purple squirrel, right? It's a set of criteria that are unmatchable. Nobody has the skills in the purple squirrel job rec, right? So we need someone who has a PhD in particle physics, and they need to have done a year's research into medieval Irish literature, and then spent 5 years, operating a submarine in the North Sea. And I mean, that's, it's like, forget it. You're not going to find that person. So the idea is these job recs, especially in burgeoning fields, you may have 60% of the skills. And if you do, and you're interested in the job, I'd say go for it. Because what they'll do is, if you show a passion or an interest and a set of skills they can apply, they'll put you in the role, and maybe they'll teach you what you don't need to know, or what you need to know, which skills you don't have, or they'll get someone else to do the third part of the job rec that you may not be able to, address. So again, I encourage people, especially, people mid-career, even late career, be fearless. Like, feature what you know how to do, but be ready to have the conversation about, well, can you train me in this area? Or can we get someone else to do this thing because I either don't know how to do it or I'm not interested in it, and you need someone to do it who can get up to speed quickly or already has the skills. So my 2 cents on job recs, hiring manager interaction.
Thank you, Chris. Do you know of good places to work to transform your current skills for?
Well, again, I'd say you've got to go for an area that you're interested in, right? Find some burgeoning, area where you can contribute. One of the things that I often do, especially for longevity economy workers, meaning maybe mid to late career, there are sites like Grand Central Tech. These organizations are modeled after kind of hybrid VC slash incubators, right? So companies apply to join, be funded or sponsored at a place like Grand Central Tech. Google has these sites as well. And they get a year, if they get accepted, they get a year of free rent and the ability to interact and rub shoulders with other entrepreneurial companies, access to VCs and mentors, and then they graduate, right, within a year or so. And they publish the companies that have graduated on these websites. So looking for companies that are funded, that are coming out of these incubator startup kinds of settings. And, look for companies that are doing stuff you're interested in. Because one of three things is going to happen. These companies are either going to blow up, right? They have a business model that's not viable. They're going to get acquired, or they're going to, grow quickly based on their value prop that deals with an addressable opportunity. So those situations, certainly companies that become successful, at some point they may get an order for like 100,000 widgets, and they're going to need adult supervision. They're going to need people with experience to step in and say, well, I know how to put a marketing plan together to, address this, or I know how to manage production or service delivery for, 100,000 widgets. I have operational skill or whatever. So I would look for companies like that and connect with them, connect with their execs on LinkedIn, follow them on Twitter, look at their blogs, look at their corporate website, see look at their press releases, see how they're growing, what they're doing, and get connected to them so that if and when an opportunity arises and they need to grow, you'll be on their radar. Let's hire that person, that woman who used to work at company X. She could probably help us do this, right?
Thank you, Chris. Looking at companies that exist now, do you think they will be able to create products and services to address this growing demographic?
Well, who will, what?
Different companies, will they be able to, businesses, be able to pivot and create products and services to address this growing demographic?
I think they will. I mean, successful companies will, right? So again, back to the idea of where opportunities are going to emerge, as gruesome as the pandemic is, and it certainly is, right? We're all looking forward to taking off our masks and getting together in a restaurant or whatever. It has accelerated the adoption of solutions that have been sort of, growing slowly or festering in the background or whatever. And it represents opportunity. So, for example, Amazon hired like 400,000 people in the past 2 quarters to manage their logistics, right? So people are ordering stuff and having it delivered to their front porch because they don't want to go anywhere and deal with it. So that's an opportunity, right? Companies like Grubhub and Uber Eats, right? So new ways we want food delivered to us. So that represents opportunity, not alone for the people bringing the food, right? But the logistics and the data capture and management behind it, operational issues, marketing for sure, communications around what kind of services are being offered. I mean, here we are having a webinar. So I did a session at the Westport Library in person like a year ago. Mm-hmm. And here we are in Zoom doing it a different way. So again, Zoom, stock went up like 400% like last quarter or whatever. So companies providing solutions that address problems that exist today are doing well, are faring well. Telehealth. I've had appointments with numerous doctors just like this, where I didn't have to get a car and drive somewhere and sit in a waiting room and then be summoned in and fill out the paperwork. And so again, telehealth. I was actually recently in a hospital and sort of waiting for an elevator, and a robot went by and got on the elevator in front of me. And I'm like, what is that? Oh, that's the robot that's restocking the nursing station. Like, oh, okay. And it gets priority over me for sure. So again, looking for opportunities where the new ways to apply technology for sure and apply existing skills and transferable skills There are lots and lots of them. Education. I mean, as sad as it is, kids being educated, at home, that's a new model. And we probably will never go back to normal. It'll be some hybrid for all of these things: telehealth, business meetings, education.
Great, Chris. I'd like to ask you, people are working part-time, full-time. There's also the concept of volunteering. And there is a concept of reverse mentoring. Do you know what it is and how does it work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I meant to dig up the URL. Maybe I can quickly find it and put it in the chat. But there's a great video about reverse mentoring. By the way, reverse mentoring is sort of senior execs sharing skills, reciprocating skills, in fact, with, say, younger employees. So there's a great example of this. There's a Wall Street Journal article and an interview and a video of Ron Garrow, who was the CHRO at MasterCard at the time, and him interacting with a young woman, like a 23-year-old right out of college, working at MasterCard. And he was giving her sort of advice around leadership skills and executive decision-making and strategic kinds of guidance. And she was showing him how to tweet. Like, here's how you do it. It's, this is the kind of content you want to share. These are the kind of links you want to include for value add. A little bit of personal info, but not too much, how to balance it. Maybe the weekend tweets are more personal, but the business tweets during the week are more about what the company's doing or pointing to thought leadership. So I'll try to dig that up. You could do a Google search for it for sure, your people listening and watching. But the idea is sharing skills across generations, right? So people have different kinds of skills, where there used to be a digital natives and a digital immigrants conversation. I think now we're all kind of, digital citizens, because whether we like it or not, we're all dealing with these tools and with technology in order to be successful in today's job roles. So.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
And I have one more question from an audience member who wants to get more information on how he can actually target industries that he's interested with, and how do you connect with people in these industries? I know LinkedIn has been mentioned, but other than going through LinkedIn, do you know of other ways of connecting with these people?
Well, again, I think LinkedIn is the key tool, right, for actually connecting, because again, if you have a premium account, you can send what are called in-mails, right? So, which are basically sort of digital cold calls. They're embedded emails within the tool. And I encourage, people watching to, if you don't have a premium account, to set one up, because it does two things. It puts the little sticker, the imprimatur on your LinkedIn profile, which shows that you understand the value of a premium account. It gives you access to LinkedIn Learning, which is a fantastic repository of content. And it also lets you send in-mails, right? So reach for people that you don't know, that aren't in your network, that you might want to connect with. So the question about people in your target industry, I would try to refine the search. Again, Boolean parameters, target industry plus VP plus operations, or plus logistics, or maybe criteria around location, New York City plus strategy, and see who pops up and see what jobs pop up. You can search both for people as well as jobs. So use the LinkedIn search criteria. Also go to websites, look at press releases, maybe for companies that you're interested in. Put together a short list, 5 companies you think are doing interesting work, track them down on LinkedIn, look for them on their websites, look for press releases. Maybe someone in the company is blogging about what they're doing. So there's some tools. Look on Twitter as well, and follow them on Twitter. And then the beauty of the Twitter math is see who they follow, who they think is interesting, who they think is doing cool stuff in your target industry, and reach for them. Either follow them or reach for them on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you very much, Chris. Does anybody have any more questions? Because we're slowly running out of time. Please post in the chat if you do.
And again, I would say, reach for me on LinkedIn. I do career coaching, and I do group mentoring sessions for people of all ages at all stages of their career. I've done this work with people at Wright Management, Wright Outplacement Firm, working with senior execs looking for their next opportunity. I'm currently running a mentoring group for students at Imperial College London, a bunch of aeronautics students. And as Ellen mentioned, I'm part of the Executives on Campus program at Baruch. We used to do speed mentoring sessions back in the day in person. Now we do them virtually, sort of 45-minute sessions trying to help students figure out what they're interested in doing and how they might land an internship or their first job. So.
Okay, well, I think that's it for today. I'd like to remind everybody to please listen to the recording on the library's website, and also to look into coming to our next two events in this series, which are Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Financial Planning for the Longevity Economy, which will be on January 21st. And also, I'd like to remind you to come on January 27th to the Future of Healthcare, Integrative Medicine for the Whole Person. Both of those will be at 12:30 p.m. The first one, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, is on Thursday, January 21st. And the Integrative Medicine one is on Wednesday, January 27th. And also, please remember to check out the Westport Library site for all sorts of great information on all of our events. And also, I'd like to remind you that we have a job search networking group which assists people who are in job searching mode to help them find other jobs. If you need more information, please again check the Westport Library site, westportlibrary.org, or you contact me, Ellen Janpol, Janpol at westportlibrary.org. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Chris, for giving a fascinating presentation. I learned so much, and I just want to say thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
All right, folks, have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.